I'm Ed Rabyd, otherwise known as the Rabyd Atheist, a former pastor turned atheist, now a compassionate anti-theist. Welcome to my channel. Feel free to like or dislike the video as you see fit, so feel free to hit those buttons. Feel free to comment below, and I would appreciate it if you would hit your notification bell for more content as released and subscribe to the channel. You're also free to share these videos as much as you like. The purpose of this channel is educational in regards to atheist and deconversion issues in particular. Also a little politics thrown in there when it comes to church and state issues, as well as, Bible and theology as relates to all those issues. Sorry, I'm feeling a little under the weather. I'm feeling a little bit of a cold coming on. I'm actually going to probably take my temperature before I go to work to make sure that I can get past the door, because I feel a little warm. And I was freezing earlier today, so yeah, something's changed. So, but today's a Friday video, and I want to deal with comments, and that's usually what I do. I think I've mentioned before that the way I deal with comments may change as I get more and more of them. I don't have a lot of them today, so I can take them one at a time, but there will come a day where I'm going to basically say I've got so many comments, I'm going to have to kind of condense the ideas behind these comments and deal with the ideas. But today I don't have to do that. I'm going back to last week's Friday video from my eldest. He says, my view of moderation theory is a view of it as truth. The view I take is that answers with social issues, economic issues, or anything typically not found in the extreme. This is compounded by the fact that solutions for similar scenarios can often be different. As a coach, not all solutions are the same for seemingly similar situations. This is because building a team is complex and requires adaptation based on numerous variables. Society is very similar. I have found in life the truth often lies within the interior of the extremes rather than the extremes themselves. This viewpoint is from examining data, others' thoughts, and experiences over time. In fact, I've changed my opinions on many things based on observations, probably more so than most people. I also view my beliefs as are not a set in stone and open to new info. Using numbers is simply a way to illustrate a point. In the end, I believe that we see eye to eye more than we don't. Religion is no doubt evil, but it isn't going anywhere. This requires governments and societies to come up with more ways to live amongst religious communities to some degree. My problem with the methodology is not that it isn't going to lead you some true answers, but when you talk social issues, economic issues, and any, I'm going to tell you that you can actually use science on those far more. For instance, you mentioned economics. Economics, what most people think about economics is it's kind of guesswork. It really isn't. 90% of economics, you can take the laws, I repeat, the laws of economics, and apply it to the situation, and you will know what will happen. It has a high degree of predictive power. Politicians like to muddy economics and say that it's a nebulous thing and you really can't understand it. And that's just not true. But for instance, I took a class called Public Economics, which was analyzing all the different ways the government can act on economics. And there's a lot of them. When you apply economic law, where you take supply demand curves, you look at, economies of scale, and you do all the economic work, you suddenly realize there's a few solutions that regardless of what the extremes might be, whether it's socialism or capitalism or whatever, or anything in between. I don't know. I think capitalism kind of is in between, but when you take those two extremes and you can throw them right out the equation, because here's what happens. By the end of the class, I think most of us had the observation that government involvement in any economic issue does a couple of things, and none of them are really all that great. One, every single time a lost economic opportunity occurs, more commonly referred to in economics as a deadweight loss. Okay, so basically the government getting involved creates waste. Okay, it just does. Okay, the moment they interfere with the free exchange of economic, and economics is more than money. Okay, it's about goods and services and things like that get exchanged. It's about the exchange of goods and services mostly. Every time they get involved, they create waste. They create a wasteful scenario. So it's wasteful. The other thing that it does is it always passes the cost on to somebody else. No matter what the economic action, you know, the law, when you apply the laws of economics, and there are laws right up there with scientific laws. The difference between economics and this is the difference between a lot of social sciences and the more hard sciences. I think if you want a definition of a difference between soft science and hard science, a hard science often has a theory, and by theory I'm using that in the scientific definition of the word. Okay, by theory I'm simply saying, you know, a lot of people use the colloquial definition, which is, you know, a guess. In science, it's more a hypothesis. Okay, you know, but a theory is, you know, a body of evidence that leads us to a certain conclusion that's pretty inescapable. Okay, that's why it's the theory of gravity, or the laws of physics, and the theory, you know, of gravity and things like that. You know, it's why, to me, the theory of evolution, that means evolution has a pretty high ranking. But often soft sciences like social sciences simply don't have theories, overarching theories. It doesn't mean they don't have a lot of laws that you have to consider, and that are laws. It's just nobody's figured out how to put all the laws together to make an overarching theory. So once again, back to public economics. When we studied public economics, we discovered that government always creates waste. There's always a moral hazard most of the time, because in the case of government involvement, you're always redistributing wealth or redistributing power. And because of that, you're taking from somebody else by force and giving it to somebody else. Okay. And so the moral hazard is you're using guns, you're using force to force other people to comply to your wishes. Okay. You know, there's a good libertarian argument for that being theft, and it's a good one to saying that if you comply to it, you're basically accepting slavery. Is that extreme? Maybe, unless you can demonstrate that that's simply true. Okay. The other thing we discovered is that, you know, no matter what you do, and this is applying economic laws, somebody's going to pick up the cost. Okay. There's no such thing as a free lunch. Okay. It's not just a nice opinion statement. It's an economic statement. There's always a trade-off. Okay. There's always something that you have to give for something else. I know there's a lot of people out there, for instance, that want zero pollution. If you have zero pollution, then you have to kill everybody, because we all pollute just by existing, okay, by technical definition. I got carbon dioxide coming out of my mouth talking right now, okay? You can't be productive and not pollute, okay? It just isn't possible. You can reduce it, and you can even take some of that pollution and maybe recycle it and make it into other energy. And we need to do that. I'm not saying we don't need to learn how to do these things. What I'm saying is the idea of 100% no pollution is just nonsense. And when I hear politicians saying that, it says, well, so you're planning on gassing everybody, including yourself, huh? You know, and they just don't, you know, they don't get the point of it, because they're not looking at the laws of economics. Okay. Other social things like psychology have this, where you have certain things that you understand and know about human behavior. It's how to apply those laws or apply those ideas that becomes an issue. The problem with labeling something as extreme as it may not be, it may simply be the truth. I prefer to label things as, are they the truth, as best I can tell, or are they, I don't know. Okay. And that's a better way, in my opinion, to go forward. Learning to say I don't know is probably the best thing. Yeah, I mean, you know, you make some very valid points, and I'm sure that we do agree. Here's the thing about religion, though, and I would probably take on Pinker with the same idea, and I'm going to say that I stole this idea because I saw it from several writers. No, because he wants to say that religion is still good in the social sciences, and I would argue no, it's not, from a social science point of view. And the reason I would say that is no respecting astronomer still uses astrology as a basis for how to do its work. They have discarded pretty much all of it. There's a sky and there's stars and planets out there. And that's about as far as it goes. Okay. Basically a simple observation level. Maybe they still agree. No self-respecting chemist still uses, alchemy. Okay. Maybe alchemy and chemistry look at something and say, yeah, there's chemicals, there's stuff out there, when you do certain things that react in a certain way. Basic observation level, they might agree. After that, no chemist is going to use what alchemy says. Why in the hell, as a social scientist, would I use religion? For the same reasons. Okay, because religion just comes to a lot of really bad conclusions. Now, here's what I hope for humanity and religion. I have two hopes for humanity. Number one, that religion becomes more and more what I would call a vestigial organ. Now, a vestigial organ is not something that necessarily has no use, but it is a diminished thing in use. Okay, probably a good example is the appendix. The appendix does have a use. It does function in the body for certain things, except because that function has been so diminished and other parts of the body have taken up the slack of that, it's really not needed. I had appendicitis at 17 and my appendix was removed. And I guess I hold at least this doctor's record for having the largest appendix he has ever seen. He even asked me on permission to put it in formaldehyde and put it in a jar. I said, sure. Okay, so, but according to him, and I have lived since I was 17 without my appendix. Okay, I haven't missed it. Okay, and my health certainly hasn't suffered from its absence. Is religion going to hang around? Probably. You're never going to get rid of religion, not at the current frame rate. But I think that as we continue to advocate for reason, you're going to see two things happen that I think need to happen for the human race to survive and continue to thrive and do what it does. Number one, religion needs to become more and more of a vestigial organ until the point that it shrinks and it's no longer necessary and it actually literally falls off of humanity. And the consequence of that is rationality is going to start to replace more and more. We're going to evolve more and more to where rationality takes more of the center stage and hopefully becomes, at least an equal to our animalistic side, to the thing that crawled out of the swamp. And so, the thing that crawled out of the swamp developed what it needed to survive in a very different world than what we live in. And part of that different world is our own creation. So we're having to deal with, issues that we have created. But that also means we have to evolve and adapt. What you're describing is evolution and adaptation when you're describing how you are learning and coming to, and that's fine. The problem is, the moment you label something extreme and say that you're going to move towards the middle, that means you're going to avoid the extreme answers. And that the extreme answer might be the truth. Just go into it saying, I need to find the truth. Okay. Or I need to be able to say, I just can't find out right now and I just don't know. And to me, that's just a better methodology. Certain things might seem extreme, but it doesn't mean that they are. And, your assessment of whether something's extreme or moderate might be very, very off. And so it's better to use as much as possible data-driven and a respect for the laws, okay, and things that we know for sure. So there you go. This was Happy New Year, searching for the truth. Still, Freebird, thanks for sharing. It's good to know others see this bad that religion can do. It was a lonely place at first when I left this behind. I'm sure if you ever decide to what to do your channel, it will be the right thing. We all have some ideas. Some just cause pain. Good luck in 2021 and for you and your family. Well, yeah, thanks for the good luck. So far, I'm ready to return 2021 for a full refund. And so, thank you. I think what people need to realize about this channel is that it's going to start evolving. It has already evolved from this grainy protoplastic, whatever the hell it was when I first started. Somebody asked me if I'm doing anything for a year anniversary, which is coming up very, very shortly. And my response is, I think I'm going to redo my deconversion story because it's really, really bad. I need to retag it. I need to redo some things with it so that it gets a little bit more airplay. It is still the most viewed video on my channel. To this, it still gets views every week. And so it's one of those things that, and sometimes people respond, and it's funny. So, but yeah, thanks for the good luck. Yeah, I think religion, it's like I said a little bit earlier, it's outlived its usefulness, and we're getting to a point where I don't think we need it anymore. It's really become like an appendix. It's okay when it's benign, but when it goes bad, we need to cut it off and get rid of it. So maybe that's the best analogy I can come up with. I'm sure there's a better one, but that's kind of the one I look at. Lude Crestfallen, a couple days ago, he says on my Rabyd Ramblings video, it's like the Willy Wonka said in the movie, we are the music makers and we are the dreamer of dreams. Yeah, I agree with that. A lot of people, I think if we're going to define purpose, you have to define it for yourself. What is your purpose? And to me, I think it's what religion does is allow you to be lazy, and you're not really playing to your own strengths. Then you're just playing to what other people say your strengths are. And yeah, most of the time they're wrong. So there you have it. OSO spiritual. Yes, sir. Keep grinding it. Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. I love the encouragement. Thank you, guys. Freebird, a couple 2 days ago, edited. This time he's talking about atheist and defining purpose. Are we very different to all creatures? What purpose does any creature have? Most are food to another. I see this as my hawk eats what it catches. No purpose but death and food in its eyes. His beak has evolved to tear meat from the bone. His feet have weapons to grip and hold, and whilst his victim dies from injury. My purpose here is to dispatch the quarry fast. All sounds a little difficult to hear, but life does not care. I do see my purpose, and it's wonderful to me. My children are living on. I am, and my mother and father, we can make purpose decisions for better, but this world will just move on for better or worse. The virus we are dealing with, and all of these are looked at as biblical, have a purpose to make us suffer. But in reality, that's just the part of life. We humans make a cruel world better by caring, nursing, working in science to heal and cure diseases. Keep smiling. We are here. Enjoy every day. We are the universe looking back at itself. Great video. Good to think. Yeah, I mean, I'm not very much of a fatalist still. There's some debate among atheists whether free will exists. Once the singularity started to expand, so to speak, was everything set into motion, and so everything's fated, and we're just playing out fate. I'm not a big believer in fate, and I'm not a big believer in everything is controllable either. So, but within the context of what I can control, I think you do make decisions. I now agree with the science that I think we make a lot of decisions about our purpose way ahead of time before we actually make, before you go in and do X, Y, or Z. There's a pretty good chance that hours before you've already made the decision of which one you're going to pick. You're just still going through the illusion that you're debating with yourself right up to the end, which is not true. So it's kind of, different, and you make a valid point. And this is somewhat of a point that I have to make with some atheists that are heavily into empathy. I'm empathic, okay? It made me a good pastor because I could read the emotions of people pretty well. But that doesn't mean I have to live on the block of empathy, okay? Life does not care sometimes, and you have to get past that. The world, I think one of George Carlin's routines back in the day was, we're not going to save the planet. And his point was very simply this, that save the planet, what a useless idea. Eventually we're going to fall off this planet like a case of fleas, and the planet's going to continue to walk around the sun. Planet's doing fine. Planet will be here long after we're gone. And it's a valid point. It's a valid point. There's going to be a time that human beings will not exist. There was a time we didn't exist, and now we exist, and there will be a time when we don't exist anymore. either will evolve into something quote unquote better or more adaptive for better survival, or will become extinct like any other species. People don't like the thought of that. My children do live on through me, from me, and some of them have grandchildren. So, my genetic legacy has been passed on the best that anybody can do. And the rest of it, what I've learned on how to be a good person and survive and live free and do the things I do, I pass on through, talking to them about it. So, it's the one thing that happens when you lose your religion is you lose these unrealistic expectations of what your life can be. You can be this person that has eternal life and you may not make big impact here on earth, but you'll make big impact with God. Well, no, you're either going to make your impact here on earth or it's just not going to happen. And then Lud Christfallen comes back and he talks again on the same video, giving me a second comment. I've always liked the comparison of finding meaning and purpose to that of an artist confronted with a blank canvas, or the folly of deriving things from authority as a newly freed slave asking who will be his master now. Yeah. I mean, defining purpose is difficult, and this is why I am an atheist libertarian, because I don't think religion or belief in God is a good way to define your purpose, and I sure as hell don't think any appeal to authority is a good way to define your purpose. So if the authority figure is telling you what to do, that's slavery. I agree with that. And a newly freed slave turning to his former master and asking what his purpose should be is pretty stupid. It's dumb, because that master is just going to say that you need to find a new way to fulfill that purpose too. That happened, here in America, where black people are like, oh, we're free now. What are we going to do? And the plantation owner says, well, I got some work that needs to be done. Here's how we can work this out. And, and sharecropping is born. And sharecropping was only slightly better than slavery. So, I mean, they weren't getting whooped or anything, but now they were growing the food and giving most of it back to the plantation owner and keeping a little bit for themselves and never getting ahead. And, it's as bad as the coal miners in West Virginia that had the company store. It's still a form of slavery. And so, finding purpose, an artist looking at a blank canvas, I think is a good analogy. I have a saying that I keep in my head, we're all stories in the end. Make it a good one. Okay. And, at the end of the day, when I'm gone, I'll be stories. Okay. And as long as people share those stories, I'll continue to go forward in some weird way. But eventually people will stop telling the stories, or the stories will evolve so it won't be me anymore. It won't really be me in truth. So, finding purpose is a lot like that. The one thing I won't do is turn to my master, my former master, and asking, who's going to be my master now? I'm going to take up my own sovereignty and lead myself, and that's independence. That's self-reliance, and that's what you need to do. And, in my case, my art medium is more writing. So I'm looking at a blank screen with my fingers on the keys and say, what story am I going to write with my life? And and I'm going to try to make it a good one. Thanks for everybody for the comments this week. I appreciate it. As for the future, things are going to happen a little bit slow. I've decided, basically, as I talked about it in my New Year video, I'm making a list of the habits that I need to get into, and I'm slowly but surely prioritizing them. And I'm not saying that the channel won't be somewhere, it'll probably be somewhere in the middle of that priorities. The first one is my health. I got to get my health back to where it needs to be. If you don't have your health, you really can't do a lot. And then, I've got some things as far as career and having the means to do some of the things that I want to do that have to be done. And then, the channel, my blog, and other things will come after that. And then I've got one other thing that I want to do something kind of thing. And I'm going to work on that last and see what I need to do there. So, but thanks for everybody for the comments. I appreciate you, and hopefully someday I can convince you to be a rabid atheist like myself. In the meantime, this is Rabyd, also known as the Rabid Atheist, signing off and wishing you a good day.